Good afternoon. I welcome everyone here. So we're waiting for Marcus. He has some technical issues, so probably takes a little until he joins us. Yeah, today Paul and I, well, we are here. So and probably talk a little about our start into the world of trading. I think that was today's topic. Yeah, what shall I say? I mean, in my case, it's not really the classic way, but more like the institutional way, probably. So I started out as a trader at a stockbroker. Paul, what about you? When did you start trading? So I think you had a more unusual way. That's probably the right way to say that.
Yeah, that's right, Jens. Hello, everybody, and I'm sure Marcus will join us once he's got his technical issues sorted. Yeah, I suppose my entry to trading was not like yours. It wasn't an institutional way, but then I suppose in other ways it was different from most people's way. So I was interested in trading. It would have been like the end of the 90s when banks in the City of London were trying to poach guys doing my job as a battle manager in the Royal Air Force to go and work as traders on bank floors, because there was an awful lot of crossover of skill sets, and that kind of got me interested. That kind of got me fascinated. So I was still under contract to the Air Force at that time, but then I left the Air Force and transitioned across into the working in the city. And started trading my own account during the kind of the sort of dotcom bubble at sort of late 90s, start of the noughties, and that is what gave me my kind of first exposure to sort of markets and trading.
That's in fact very, very fascinating. I once had a seminar discussion with a trading psychologist, and what he said, I will always remember that. He said that especially people who have clear rules they have to follow, like pilots, for example, they will usually better traders than especially artists who are more, let's say, flexible and more innovative in their thinking. Because if you trade, I mean, while you certainly have to have an open mindset and probably be creative and see new trends developing, still to be long-term successful in trading, I think you have to really follow clear rules. And that was very interesting, because that's I think a fair way to put it. And I think this is no coincidence that especially you, as someone who worked in the Air Force in this case, was then hired from banks, and were told to teach people how to trade the markets. Do you had the task to tell them how to trade? Because if you had no experience, it was more like the right mindset, right? And the coaching around this.
Well, there's a kind of couple of elements there. So basically, I didn't move into a bank, but I worked kind of around that ecosystem. I actually worked in sort of internet telecoms, in and out of banks and trading floors. So I did get to go onto trading floors, and if I'm honest, I was a bit underwhelmed by what I saw. There were some fantastic people in there, but actually also, there was a lot of let's say a lot of mediocrity, shall we say? And what I read was that. You
also could have gone to politics and made a career there, I think. So.
There's still time, Jens. There's still time. There's still time. But what I found was that I read there was like a quote already. It was like a statistic that something like, I think it was something like 90% of FTSE pension fund managers failed to beat the FTSE average, which in those days could be between about 8 and 11% return. And I just thought to myself, hang on a minute, if 90% of these guys can't do it, why am I giving my money to like an investment fund, etc.? to do that. You know, I come to these offices and stuff, and it's lovely offices. They've all got very flash cars and lovely suits, but hang on, you know, 90% of them aren't able to beat the actual FTSE average. And so my view was, well, you know, if you can't join them, beat them. And so I did, But what I'm very clear on is that I was very lucky. You know, I didn't consider myself a trader at that time. I considered myself like a lucky punter, because I was in the right place at the right time with the right knowledge about telecoms, internet, during the dot-com boom. So I was just, you know, I was very lucky. You know, it wasn't, when I look back at how I operated then, as I said, I was just lucky, and I managed to get out about a week. It was about a week or so before it crashed in March 2000. And once again, I was just lucky. You know, it wasn't some great analysis. It wasn't some, you know, I was just very lucky. And I'm always very, what's the word? You know, I'm always very, you know, embracing of that. All right. It wasn't me being great. It wasn't me being brilliant. You know, I was lucky. And yeah, you know, and to come back to your earlier point, you know, we talk about, you know, that's the big debate in trading, isn't it? About, is trading an art or a science? And I think it's a bit of both, but I actually think it's the science bit you have to get in place first. And for me, and what helped me was the science for me is the building blocks is all about risk management. And I suppose as a veteran, that's one thing you become very good at, managing risk. And I think, you know, I brought that across to trading, and that managing risk first and foremost is what allowed me to survive what is a very brutal learning curve at times. You know, and by managing risk, I was able to survive, to acquire enough skills and knowledge and expertise to go on and prosper. So I think, yeah, you know, trading can be an art and a science, but it doesn't matter how good an artist you are. If you haven't got those building blocks of science, of things like just the simplest route, being able to manage risk, well then, you know, your trading journey is going to be either going to be difficult or it'll be short.
Both. That's interesting that you say that, especially in terms of the banks, because when I joined the trading desk, so the stockbroker, they made all of load of money during the dot-com bubble, because they had this access to better data, where they were capable of trading on a spread which was ridiculously high, and then they sometimes made something like points on thousands of shares, and then they just called it a day, something like 2 hours later, and just headed for a quick journey to, I don't know, Mallorca or something like that, having some party with cigars and money thrown around and everything. And the interesting thing was that when I was there, I realized that this was just execution only trading they did. That wasn't just, they never really took on risk themselves. And that became really very clear right from the start, because sometimes they also gambled around a little with their own accounts, and it was more often than once that was like, okay, yeah, well, I busted it again, and just like, but you're the expert, so you should know what you're talking about. And they had really no clue about risk and money management. It was just like gambling around a little and getting in, getting out. And when I realized that that this wasn't what I was looking for during that time, it was great learning experience. It was really great to see how institutionals think, respectively, how to quote a market, but it wasn't really like what I thought that what trading is about, like taking your money, then get to work and let it work, and manage the risk accordingly. And I'm not just quoting a market and just trying to capture the spread, if at all, during that time, even though there were some funny stories sometimes. So like the classic retail trader, for example. I mean, my career started with the book from Murphy that was on technical analysis. Yeah, that was the first book. I was just like, okay, so I have no clue. So I was a trainee with a bank before. And by the way, so probably, oh, I'm just jumping a little. So, but when you say it's about luck, getting into this industry, in my case, it was really the same. So I worked with a bank beforehand. So after school, I finished school. My parents said, well, great that you want to continue learning and go to university, but we'd appreciate it if you have something solid to build your life on, let's say. So, and then there was like, okay, I said, well, it has to be something with numbers. Okay, and then you start to think about this, and you're, yeah, late teens, let's say. I headed to the bank that day after having this discussion, and then there was a small piece of paper saying, well, we are hiring right now. I was like, hey, this is great. So we are hiring. This is making things easy, because now I can just apply for a job. Let's see if they hire me or not. But I can at least tell my parents, look, I did something, and if it doesn't work out, I can still go to university. So they hired me in the end, and then so I found out that banking is not that complex, let's say. So it was so I also met some very interesting people behind the scenes, also in terms of like money managers and the guys you meet in a bank, and who say, well, invest, let's say 10,000 and we'll make something out of this, and then you learn something about the products and you just realize something, this is well, not that good. And after that, I mean, I already tasted money, let's say. So I was independent from my parents. I still lived at home, but then I was like, okay, probably I can have my own flat, and so the thing is, now you tasted the money, but then you plan to also go to university to study. And then my girlfriend back then, her father was in a, I'm not sure how this is called in English, to be honest. So it's like where students met also after they finished university. So like a small circle of students.
Like a alumni club or something like that.
Yeah,
Fraternity.
exactly. Yeah. I think fraternity is a very good way to put it there. And there was one guy who was also looking up to the father of my girlfriend, and he was a trader at the stockbroker. And so we were talking one evening. So what do I plan to do to make ends meet and to finance the flat? And I said, well, I'd really like to learn something about trading and stock exchanges. And I was like, hey, I have a potential job then for you. And he just needed to go to his to his small student in this case. And I applied, but it was really like they was just saying, hey, great, come work for us. And that's how I got really in this job. I'm not really sure if I would have gotten that job if that wasn't playing out the way, because it was I think a difficult time back then. So I think it was 2005, 2006. It was after the dotcom bubble, but there was also this transition taking place from pit trading, let's say, over to a more electronic way to trade. And so that's in fact how I got started, how I got in this industry, and then really took it from there. Realized that it was pure execution only. It wasn't the story you read from the guys in Market Wizards or something like that, where people really like where are taking risk on themselves and then making sometimes millions within years. So yeah, that's in fact how I got fascinated by the world of trading.
Yeah, because what happened is after the kind of dot-com crash occurred, I kind of lost interest in trading for a little while. I had other business. I was actually working on building a business, and people forget. Those years ago, in those days you didn't have like what Admirals provide now in terms of really excellent access to markets. So unless you were deemed to be a sophisticated investor, it was very difficult to have to get access to what we would look at as CFD trading and spread betting. Now it's everywhere, but 15, 20 years ago it was a very different landscape. And so after the kind of dot-com bubble, I was I worked away. I was working business, and actually I was working. I was studying in the evening to learn about how to build an import-export company. And that's actually what I was looking at doing. And what got me fascinated was that the mentor, the tutor I was learning from, I got to look at his books from the previous year in terms of what his business had done, and it looked like something like it was like 40% of his profits had actually come from shifts in the Turkish lira. He was doing a lot of importing and exporting of products and stuff. And I just thought, well, hang on a minute, he's got all this risk in terms of, he has to have bonded warehouses and staff and products and insurances and traveling and stuff, and that only accounts for 60% of his revenues and profits for the year, and 40% actually just came from shifts in the Turkish lira. And this was years before, we see the kind of the big moves and volatility we've seen over the last couple of years. And so it got me to start thinking about, well, actually, how could you do that? Having been let's say a kid of the internet generation who just thought, well, could we not just do electronic work on this rather than have to have all warehouses and staff and what have you? And then in one of those kind of one of those weird coincidences that happens in life, about a week or so later, I met a South African friend in London, about maybe 15 odd years ago and stuff. And, I was asking what he was up to. And he said, oh, I'm actually getting involved in this new, ability to do Forex trading and such. And, he showed me what he was doing. And suddenly I thought, well, wow, this, I've done a bit of trading, I have a big picture mentality and stuff in terms of looking at. I've seen what this import export company, how they're shifting currencies make massive differences to them. It was almost like everything kind of came together. It was kind of a weird thing of like 3 or 4 things, confluence of events all coming together. And that's basically what sort of helped me sort of transition across into effectively, to start with, just trading FX markets. So when I look back, and it was kind of a weird. There was a lot of confluence events that just came together to take me where I am now.
So, and in my case, in regards to the first trading account I opened, that was after a discussion I had with the guy who was then working there at the execution only desk, and I learned that he was a prop trader before that, and was also trading around the dotcom bubble then at a big bank, and had a pretty big book, but it broke him, let's say. So you really could. I just was wondering, like, he was, to me, making kind of an impression, like when he was talking about the market, it was really like he was scared. So like that was something like we just thought, well, that just doesn't make sense. I mean, this is a trader, and this guy is usually someone who makes the impression on you to be mentally really stable and knowing what he's doing. But when he started to talk about the market, it was a complete shift. It was like, it was really, really scared. And I learned that then afterwards that that trading can break you. So that wasn't the first one, and it wasn't the last. But also that this guy was then the guy who still had this, let's say, gambling within him. And then that's when he said, well, if you want to start small, then just open a CFD account here. So this is an advertisement I just saw, probably this is for you, and then you can just start to trade somewhere in and out. The interesting thing was that had nothing to do with the execution we were doing, and so I really started from scratch. I didn't know what I was doing. But I remember the first day when I really got into trouble. So I was still a student, so I wasn't making like big money that time. So even some $100 could have made a difference for the end of the month, so that you go back to mama and papa and tell them, hey, could you please give me some money so that I can pay my rent? And so then I had a great day. So like I got really nice feedback from the senior trader, and everything was cool, and I felt like the greatest guy on earth. And then now I have it. And so then what's the word for this? So my job was done for the day. So I finished, and then I was like, okay, I still hang in here for some minutes, because I know that there is now some numbers for oil being published, and that's every I think Wednesday, right? So it's usually on Wednesday. And I was like, yeah, I read that there's some volatility involved when trading oil. So, and since I'm now the greatest trader on earth after this great day, so I was like, okay, that's and then I remembered the patterns I read about in the book Technical Analysis, and then I shorted crude oil, but somehow it didn't work out that way, and we just spiked on the upside, and it was really like I was paralyzed, like looking on the screen and just think, because stops or something like that, this is for losers. Who's using a stop if you're a great trader on earth, right? Yeah, well, and then I lost my account, nearly. I really nearly lost it, over 20% within seconds. It was like, and then just still I just got back, and I just like, okay, probably it's the best way to just exit, and then see. Certainly I exited and the market collapsed afterward, but that's another story. And so the interesting thing about this was that I really realized that there must be something more to this than just going long or short. In addition to that, that risk management is very, very important. And the interesting thing was that the importance of risk and money management, I didn't learn it solely by trading, but during that time, there was also this online poker boom taking on momentum. And there was one other student who got me into online poker at that time. It was like he was sometimes playing around a little, and I was like, "What are you doing there?" And then he explained this to me, and I was like, "That sounds interesting." And then I found out myself that somehow trading and poker they have something in common, and I took it from there. So I just played for pennies, but then built my role pretty steadily and quite quickly, within no time, in fact, because during that time there was no real edge involved. It was just like lots of fishes around, and then you could make some money. And then you then realize, okay, now you have to really start to think about how much you bet, not just on each street, but also what's the buy-in, you're buying into the games and everything. And that really then brought me even one step further in terms of like, there's mathematical models. I mean, I also studied mathematics. So there was like then working with simulations and based on all the input parameters you can get out of your poker / trading, that was going hand in hand. And that was really like when I started to think of it from a professional perspective. Today, I would say that was the start of my career as a professional. It wasn't just like trading anymore, gambling anymore, but it was really like professional trading now with risk money management involved. And yeah.
We'll come back to, because that's actually really that's a really good point and stuff in terms of you get to a point where if you are not managing risk, you're going to end up as roadkill, and it comes to a decision point. All right, and I see this in lots of traders I've worked with, is you have to come to a decision point. You either have to start treating it like a business, which means managing risk first and foremost, or you treat it like a hobby. And that's fine. Trading can be a hobby, but if you're engaging in this, it needs to be treated like a business, and then you need to have the kind of right mindset, attitude, business practices, etc. Touch on that. It's you talked about. I can still remember my kind of first live trades in the FX markets. Basically, what had happened is I'd started on demo trading in the December, and I basically said to myself, I sort of set a very simple rule that I wasn't allowed to go live until I had demonstrated 4 consecutive weeks of profits. And so basically I used that time to just effectively learn how to use the platform, learn different trading ideas, just basically ease myself in and understand and watch and see how it worked and place the trades. And then it would have been, it was April, it's like kind of start of the April, I went live. So, I was on demo there for 4 or 5 months. Okay. Just basically, as I said, I'd set that rule of, I don't go live until I've got, 4 consecutive weeks profit, then I'm allowed to do it. And in those days, these days, traders have an absolutely fantastic opportunity these days, because you have mini lots, micro lots, okay, nano lots, even, I understand, you can trade. Back in those days, FX, it was like literally, one standard contract, that was it. You were, that was like $10, a pip, that was it. That was, that was the sort of the baseline. That's what you started. So, I can remember it was like early April, I was trading just an early morning breakout system. It was on euro dollar and pound dollar. And, that first day, it was like 174 pips I made, okay, and you kind of first live trade and stuff. And I just thought, this is fantastic. This is brilliant. Step aside, George Soros, step aside, Paul Tudor Jones. There's a new guy in town here and stuff. This is going to be absolutely.
First thing, you ordered a Lamborghini, right?
So that's right. Yeah, straight down to the garage. Straight down to the garage. Phoning up the Sunseeker yacht showroom, and stuff, because you just like having worked it and seen it, and having worked it is just like it's absolutely fantastic, and then it went really well for like a couple of months and stuff, and when I look back now, it was just because I can look back at those charts now. It's just because those markets were trending. Right, those markets were trending, so an early morning breakout system just worked, and clicked, and you ran it for the day, and it worked really well. But then after about 2 months, it kind of degraded, all right, and degraded and stuff. And what I realized was that actually, thankfully, I had always managed risk. I had, even when I was like trading on demo, I'd always like, I'm only risking 1% of my account. I'm position sizing accordingly. I've read. I've read Van Tharp's books and stuff about managing yourself, about position sizing and stuff, and I'd just taken that on board. All right, so I'd done really well to begin with. Then I had a bit that tailed off and degraded, but what allowed me, as I said, is that I was just effectively, I was still managing risk, which allowed me to go through those kind of plateaus, allowed me to go through those kind of drawdowns, allowed me to sort of survive long enough to acquire the skill sets and the understanding of markets, to be able to prosper. So it's why when everyone will hear me ever talk, or I'm just always like manage risk first. You are a risk manager first and a trader second. That is that's your starting block, and if you're not doing that right, it doesn't matter how great your system is, it doesn't matter how great you think you are as a trader, you're going to get kicked into the long grass. You are a risk manager first and a trader second, and
it's really fascinating.
Constantly try and tell people that.
So what you're saying is really fascinating. I think this perfectly illustrates like what's meant by being disciplined, respectively, also being I mean, can we call you a Marine or a soldier or a battle manager? I mean, this is the same with shooting live, I think, right? So I never shot a weapon myself, but I think probably it's like you first of all you have to show that you're not shooting in your own feet or wherever else, and then if you're doing well, then you can shoot live. But therefore, you really have to really show not just to yourself but also to the overall manager in this case that you can handling also the stress. I think I could imagine that to be really lots of pressure if you're firing live bullets. So in this case, the same as in trading. So I think this is perfect example. And I think no one, I wouldn't say no one, but I think you really have to understand this first. So to realize that this is no kindergarten, let's say, when you're going live with your trading, but really that there's some hard-earned money you're risking here. And I think that this is uncommon. I think most of the traders go out there and they don't start with demo, but because, like I said, who's trading demo? The real guys trade live, right? And that's how they start. And then they realize, there's lots of pressure, and then cognitive biases kick in and dissonances, and everything else follows. And then the first account is gone. So this is, by the way, also something I never crushed an account. I just realized when thinking about this today, I really never crushed an account, even though there were drawdowns, certainly. But it was always that I was also kind of like reflecting and also very sometimes strict when I realized something's not working. It's not because the market is not working, or probably it's because the market has changed, but it's the market is still working, but under different rules now. But it's because of me, and that's why I have to scale back, probably switch over to demo, review your trading, the trading journal, what strategies are working, which are not, and then slowly start over again. And I think this is probably also, I could imagine there's lots of people out there who could really make it in trading if they weren't broken, let's say, in the first place. I think most probably just realize the pressure, and then they go all in and they are broken, and then they are done for the rest of their lives and say, well, even if I could probably make it, this is not worth my time.
No, I'd agree with you there. I think compared to when I started, there just wasn't the plethora and wealth and ubiquity of educational materials, like there are now, like sessions like these, like the Trading Spotlight webinars, okay, like being able to demo trade by even being able to trade, like sort of, mini lots, micro lots, etc. and stuff. And so back then it wasn't so, there was literally, there weren't any groups, that you could go to. There weren't any forums really. You were a little bit in the dark, and so you'd spend I would spend a lot of time in bookshops, buying Market Wizards and Mark Douglas's books and Van Tharp's books, etc.
Van Tharp had one of these little circles, right? So if I remember right.
Yeah, he did and stuff. And I think his business still does. But and it's well, it led me to, because later on, years later, when I was living in London, I started up my own little traders network because actually there was a couple of us who used to meet. We'd go to a place called Brick Lane in London, which is like where you go for like Indian curries, and we would literally, one Saturday evening a month, we would all meet. There'd be about 6-7 of us, and we'd meet and we'd just bring printouts of our trades and stuff, and we'd have a couple of beers and talk about our trading and stuff. And and it was because private trading can be a lonesome endeavor, and actually being able to sit and just chat and share and stuff is quite important. That background I'd had in the Air Force, they spend a lot of time on recording missions and then debriefing missions, because that's how you get better. And it's one of the things that helped me is that in aviation in general, whether it be military aviation or civil aviation, there is a much more how would I describe the culture is very much more open-minded about embracing your mistakes and bringing them to the fore, learning from them, because the consequence for failure in aviation is really high. If something goes wrong, plane will crash, people will get killed, etc. So there's a real, the culture is all about, let's learn from the mistakes so they don't happen again, and let's always try and drive to be better. And I think that definitely helped me when I came across to trading, because yeah, it's a different kind of mentality, in trading. If you've had a lost trade, you've lost some time and you've lost some money. The money you can get back, okay? The market always provides an endless list of opportunities. And if you debrief properly and extract as much trading value as you can out of that trade, well, then you didn't really lose the trade. It's an investment that will help you be a better trader tomorrow. And I would generally think that kind of attitude, that mindset, helped me enormously, and it is what I try to get across to people themselves, that make sure you keep great data on your trades, make sure you debrief it, and make sure you extract all the trading value. What can you learn? There's always something you can learn, so that you can be a better trader tomorrow than you were yesterday.
It's very fascinating, because right now I look here in the chat box, and there's a question from Anka asking, do you also do live trading sessions? I think this is a perfect question, because this is usually what you first of all think about. Like you see a trader and it says, well, show me how you trade. So open the trading platform and just the interesting thing is, I think that the preparation part and also the reviewing of your trading is so much more important. And that's why I'm so skeptical about these live trading, because I can fully understand that. Because when I started out, it was like I wanted to see the flashing lights on the screen and the trader entering and exiting the trade. And but I think there's not much emphasis on how you prepared for the trade, what you saw there, because people just look at you and they just think, hey, great, but how did you do this? I mean, why did he enter there? Why did he exit there? Well, it was because, especially in entering the trade, I prepared beforehand. It was like lots of work I put in to, in my case, finding the stock which is in play for the day, which is hot. Why is it hot? So the catalyst which let it become hot, and then saying, okay, the catalyst is usually bullish, bearish, based on the chart here. So we're probably oversold, and now even more bearish news. If we now catch a bid and the market reverses, well, this is probably a sign much of the negativity is already priced in. But this is nothing I do based on the action and right in front of the screen, but I already thought about this beforehand. And then it's not just on entering and exiting the trade, but also on what can you learn out of this, because there's always a learning opportunity. And there's lots of people, and I did this myself. Like, I had a great trading day, shut down the trading platform, say, lady, baby, come on, let's have a drink, and I'm your trader. But there was no review process taking place or something like that, which I learned way after that. It's so much more important. And then people look at you today and say, what was your day? And you say, well, was a okay day. Okay, what is okay day in numbers? And you say number XYZ. People look at you, this is what you did today. Yes. And you're not excited? No, because I made a mistake here and I could have done better there. And people don't understand this. And then after thinking about it for a while, you're just like, oh, well, that sounds somehow weird to someone who's not doing what you're doing. But in fact, that it's what's trading is about, and what also professionalism in trading is about, I think.
Yeah. No, I'd agree with that. Trading is good. Trading is actually quite boring, really.
Yes,
quite boring, yeah. Because actually, it's
if it's not, you have a problem. That's something.
Yeah,
you have
exactly,
to think about.
Exactly. And I tell people, if you want excitement, go and buy yourself an Xbox, or a PlayStation or something, because it's good trading is actually quite boring, and it is that all that about performance is you plan, you execute, and you review. So, as you said, the prep you do before your market would open, especially if you're intraday trading, that would be, that can be quite important. And actually, most of it becomes not so much about prepping the market, but about prepping yourself. And is invariably just understanding and making sure you're in the right space to trade well, because you're not trading is not a Monday to Friday 9 to 5 40 hours a week job. You're not paid to turn up, you're paid to perform. And so you owe it to yourself, especially if trading your own capital. You owe it to yourself to be able, in a position where you can perform at your best. And very often, if you start in early morning trading as an intraday trader, if you haven't slept well, maybe you're a late night, maybe you have an argument with your partner, maybe you're distracted by other stuff going on. If you don't address that, that will come into your trading decisions in the morning. Men in particular like to think that they can work and operate and trade in a silo, and that nothing nothing going on in the outside world will have an impact upon them, but it does. And you need to, part of it is about raising your awareness about these things, so that you can recognize when you're in a good space and you trade well, and when you're not in a good space, you either basically ask yourself, can I do anything to change that headspace, or am I better to basically to go and do something else, go and sit under a tree and read a book. The Paul Tudor Jones in Market Wizards, he comes out with this great quote, which is that basically profits come from happiness, not the other way around. So he spends all his days trying to make himself happy. And it's true, people think profits will make them happy, but actually it is you being in a happy space that is actually more likely to help you, generate good results as a trader. So managing that becomes really key, becomes really important, because actually the execution of your plan, is actually a little bit dull, a little bit boring. And eventually I ended up working for hedge funds, as a trader for them. And I remember the kind of, on the first one I worked for, the two traders either side of me, they said they had no idea. They had no idea whether I was up on the day or down on the day. They just, they said, Paul's just Paul. He comes in, sits down, puts his cans on, just works and just trades away. And you know, whether you're up in the day, whether you're down the day, you know, you're just executing. You know, you plan your trade your plan, manage your risk. It's, you know, it is you know, you just go through the process. That's what it becomes. So, yeah,
it's fascinating that you say that. I remember though, I worked it was on a seminar here over here in Germany. So we had a webinar, a seminar series. And that was also he was a professional trader and trading really big, also back in the 19s, in German equities in this case. And he once said on one of his presentations that traders, especially those who are successful, are usually very good people. And I was like, okay, that's an interesting book, because usually you say, well, there's lots of like arrogance involved, or they are very egomaniacs or something like that. But I think what he was aiming on was what you just said, that happiness results in profits. And if you really work on being happy and trying to be as good as you can, this will naturally will have an impact on the outer world. By the way, in terms of sleeping well and something like that, I just mentioned that here. This is the Aura ring I'm just using. Yeah, some people are probably wondering, how can you track whether you slept well or not? I mean, you can easily say, well, in the morning I feel good or not, but that's so old school. So let's use it. So there's way to do that, and to track your sleep. And that's also something I found out. Sometimes it's like you can also use this as kind of a guide, in my case. So it really, it's not really tracking your performance. Sounds a little ridiculous, but like you have an idea of how active were you today, how well have you slept, and then there will be patterns, and you just say, well, today I felt good, and then you check these stats, you just look them up in the app there, and then just think, well, that makes sense. And then you try to make more of this, because it's something which lets you feel better, which naturally affects your trading, because then you just feel in the moment. And also you easily find out that a losing trade, for example, so if you have more than one trade a day, for example, especially those who are more active, the negative trades just don't affect you as much, which will likely result in you performing better on average, at least in the trades you make later today, and turn the sinking ship around. That sounds a little harsh, but yeah, you know what I mean. So
yeah.
And yeah, so people who are trading are usually very good people. Remember that.
That's I'm gonna, yeah, I hadn't heard that before, but it's you know, I wouldn't necessarily disagree with that. You know, I've been very fortunate to work with some exceptionally good traders, you know, who are operating either on a personal level or at an institutional level. You're really, you know, exceptionally good guys and girls at the top of their game. You know, and you know, when I think about them, when I think of them, you know, they've all been, you know, they've all been good guys and girls. You know, they've all been very, you know, they're kind of people who I would enjoy spending time with. I would enjoy their company. And I know for myself, you know, trading keeps you very humble. You know, certainly for me, it keeps you humble, because, you know, the moment you think, you know, I won't use language, but you know, the moment you think you're the king of the hill, you know, the moment you think that you know it all, that you know you're absolutely the top of the game, that is just the moment you
should then hedge your book. That's the moment.
That's the time to get slammed, and you know you're about to get slammed. So, you know, I find it's very good at keeping you humble, because you've got that awareness. You know, you're only as good as your last trade. You know, so you know there's no. There's no kind of, you know, wallowing around saying, you know, you're the big guy and stuff and what have you. That most of the really good traders I know I've worked with and stuff, they're not like that. They're not like that at all. They're, you know, they're really quite, you know, focused, disciplined, decent guys and girls, very, you know, very switched on, very self-aware. You know, and you know, and that comes across definitely with them. So yeah, I'd I've been very fortunate. I have no doubt that within certain areas, you know, that some of the individuals who've done well, you know, may not be the nicest characters, but actually my experience has been that most of them have been really good guys and girls and stuff. You know, they've earned it. They've worked really hard. You know, there's no, there's no shortcut to being a long-term sustainably successful trader. Everyone has to put the work in. Everybody has to put the work in. There's no getting around that. And a lot of that work is about putting the work in on yourself. I genuinely believe that long-term sustainable success tends to come after a period of behavior modification by the individual. There's lots of people who don't want to do that work. They don't want to do that work. They don't want to basically have to change. But the reality is you do have to change. I tell people that we live in a time of the world now where people have unbelievable levels of control around their environment. So if you're hungry, you can get some food. You're thirsty, you can get some water. If it's dark, you can switch a light on. If it's cold, you can turn the heating up. Everybody can control their environment, from your phone even, to levels unheard of before, in the kind of history of the human race. And what that happens is that tricks people into thinking that they can control everything else in their life. It tricks people into thinking that they can control the markets, and so they come to the markets with that kind of mentality, and the market very quickly disabuses them of that notion. It quickly, puts them in their place. And you have to realize that, the market isn't going to change for you. You have to change to get in alignment with the market. And that means, there's going to have to be some work done on yourself. And I think some people see that and say, actually, do you know what? I'm not prepared to do that work. But invariably, if you are, that is when you get your next evolution to your next level as a trader.
I think that you mentioned that is especially true right now. So I think there were lots of people making lots of money without knowing where the money is coming from in everything like crypto, especially tech stocks, NFTs, and so on and so forth. And then these fancy ads you've seen all over the place on Facebook, and the helicopters flying around. So then you meet someone, let's say in the gym, and he asks you, hey, what are you doing for a living? And you say, well, I do something with numbers. So you really low profile, don't talk about trade, because you know exactly which direction you will get if you say I'm a trader. And then he starts to push you a little and say, hey, numbers, what do you mean? Like insurances? Yes, sometimes also insurances. And then, well, finally, you can't hold it anymore and just like, yeah, I'm trading. Oh, trader. So you like AMC to the moon. Yes, sometimes I also trade AMC up to, well, you must be, if you're doing this for a living, I mean, the Ferrari outside, is it yours? No, I'm here. I'm here. I just walked around, and and then you really have to explain yourself, because people really think that this is so easy to make lots of money, and they don't really realize how much money you have. Money, yeah, money too, but also how much work you have to put in to become sustainably long-term profitable in trading. And that profitability doesn't necessarily mean that you're making something like 100 grand each day, but it's like a process. It's like it develops over time, and you trade within your, let's say, comfort zone. So it's something where that's very funny, I think, because people think that traders have a big ego, but I think that's not necessarily the case. It's more like they have a high level of self-confidence. They know what they can do well and where they have to put in some extra work, which is not necessarily having a big ego. Yeah.
No, I'd agree. I never tell people I'm a trader. If anybody asks, if they don't know me, I just tell them I'm a professional risk manager. And actually, that's enough to bore most people. Most people just look at that and think, "Oh God, that's boring." Like,
oh, Texas. This is something with Texas.
Let's just leave this guy and stuff. And you know, that's fine. I have no problem with that and stuff. Because people have either got a misconception, about either what trading is, in good or bad ways. Okay, namely, either on one side they think of you just that you just spend your day trading crappy stocks like AMC, or they have ideas about the role of traders in society and stuff, and they're never good opinions, and they're always very keen to share them with you. So so I don't tell anybody. I just say I'm a professional risk manager, because in my head that is actually why I'm a professional risk manager, and that's and I go from there.
Yeah, that's probably It's probably a very, very good way to say what we're doing.
Yeah. I saw in the chat box somebody said, I think there was a question there about, whether people had a mentor, whether we'd had a mentor. And, I tell a tale. I did after about, I would have been about maybe about 18 months or so, probably 18 months, 2 years. I worked with a mentor, and it was an interesting experience, and it probably later down the line led me to, well, probably a little bit an element of where I am here now, is that I worked with a mentor, and he'd been trading for like 25 years. He is one of the few traders I have seen that really had the ability to effectively to flex in and out of markets really, really well. He was operating at a real level of unconscious competence. Okay, and so he could quite happily be, he could be trading cable, he could be trading pound against dollar, and he could be long on the daily, short on the hourly, long on the 5 minute and stuff. He could have all sorts of things going on like that. And so he set me the target of, right, you are to make 2,000 pips a month from your FX trading. Again, that's what he was doing. And I got nowhere near it. I was maybe making 1 month I'd make about 200 pips, next month 250, next month 300 and stuff. And he was like, well, do you know what, Paul, you're clearly not cut out for this. You're not good. Look at me. I can make 2,000 pips a month, easy peasy. But what I realized is, I'd been trading for about 18 months. He'd been trading for like 25 years. I subsequently found out he'd made no money for the first 11 years. And what I realized was that, every month I was just getting a bit better, 200 pips, 250 pips, 300 pips. And the big thing I took away from that, and it's what I would tell traders, to new traders, is, absolute goals, which is what he'd set me. They're okay to start with, to give you a little bit of inspiration and motivation, but actually it's relative goals that will help take you further. Goals relative to your own performance. That's helped me enormously in most of the things I've done. Being able to sort of reset goals relative to my own performance rather than somebody else's arbitrary number. Because when you don't reach that, you can just use it as a stick to beat yourself with. Trading is challenging enough as it is. You don't need any external reason to beat yourself up. So mentors can help, but it's worth doing your due diligence to work out whether it's a good working relationship for yourself.
Yeah, I think this is a very good way to put it. So a mentor, like someone who followed me on my journey, let's say, I never had one. But I really tried to, first of all, find out who am I, and then there's so much content out there. So I mean, I'm probably a little later a generation, let's say, already after the dot-com bubble, and then right into the great financial crisis, 2007, 2008, a little earlier probably. But there was already so much content out there, so many great books. And then I just, that was like, probably can call it brute force, like reading everything, and then just picking what works best for you, and then become the best version of yourself. It's not that I didn't spend money on like coaching sessions or something like that. So, but it really has to fit my personality. So like you have to feel, okay, this guy really cares about you and really wants to help you to get better. But it's not that they have a, let's say, plan they give to you and you just follow the plan, but that you can develop your own plan and find your own path and then make your own way in the world of trading.
Totally agree with you there. Absolutely.
So I just well, this is great. So I when you talk about unconscious competence, when I have to explain this to people, it's like you talking to a good friend, and you just completely lose the watch respectively the time. So you don't know. And we probably have to wrap it up, because probably Nastya is getting a little nervous.
Our assistant's probably going mad, hopping mad, saying, wind it up, you two. But the thing is, traders could talk about this all day. You could talk about it all afternoon, quite happily, quite easily and stuff. So, I hope the people who've joined us today, or the people who watch this later on YouTube, I hope they get some benefit, some insight, okay, and realize that, everybody, if you're new to trading, everybody's had to start somewhere. Everybody has to start on that journey, and you all, go in your, it goes in your own direction at your own pace, but everybody had to start somewhere. There is, it's, we are all on that journey to trading mastery.
Don't be shy. If you have questions, ask them, because we all had them, and there's no stupid questions. So like, okay, a difficult question, let's say, it's now long or short. That's probably a little difficult to answer, but in general, if you have any questions, self-doubt or something like that, feel free to ask the questions. I think we are out there. So you are on Twitter, Paul,
yeah.
Myself too. You can ask the question if you watch this on YouTube. Ask the questions below the video in the comment box. We're more happy, I think, to help and answer.
Totally. Yeah, totally. Very happy to.
Great, Paul. It's been a pleasure.
It has been a pleasure. Pleasure as always, Jens. All right. Yeah. Have yourself enjoy the rest of your day, and everybody else enjoy the rest of the trading week. Whatever's left of it now.
So if you see markets moving, now Paul and Jens are jumping into the action. Guys, have a nice one. Happy trading. See you.